So thank you for joining us this evening. Hopefully you'll kind of familiarise yourself with the screen and where the chat is. Hopefully we'll have a bit of time for questions and answers towards the end. So please do pop any questions you have into the chat. I'll run through my presentation. Hopefully some of them will be answered during the presentation. But yeah, at the end we'll hopefully have some bit of time to run through any questions that you might have. So I think I will get started just so that we can get things covered. So hello, my name is Kate and I am the Family and Information Manager at Snap Charity. Hopefully some of you may already be accessing us. We are based in Brentwood, but we cover the whole of Essex and we support families who have children aged 0 to 25, any additional need or disability. We don't require a diagnosis. We do a really wide range of services at Snap, so please, if you've not heard of us before, do make sure you check out our website, snapcharity.org, and that gives you a bit of a flavour of everything that we do at Snap. So today we are going to kind of do a bit of a whistle-stop tour of an introduction to visuals. I could probably talk about visuals for hours and hours, and we've only got half hour today, so I'm going to kind of speed through and we'll kind of look at ways that we can adapt the visuals to meet the needs of your child and the different types of visuals that we can put in place and different images that we can use as part of our visuals. So I thought it would be helpful to kind of think about what the point of visuals are. And actually, I don't know about you, but as an adult, I really heavily rely on visual supports to keep myself organised, if I need to learn how to do something new that I've not done before, and also remind myself of what I need to do, upcoming tasks. You know, using visuals effectively are really, really helpful tools and a life skill that takes you all through adulthood. So just thinking about what you might use in the way of visual supports, anything that stops you having to kind of keep everything in your head to do these things. So some of the things that I came up with for organisation might be calendars, you might have a diary, you might be one of those brilliantly organised people that I'm very jealous of, that labels everything, particularly in the kitchen. When you go in, you know exactly where everything is. You might colour code things. For tasks, we as adults will use instructions, recipes, tutorials, whether that's a pitch tutorial or a video on YouTube of how to do something new, maps, and obviously reminders. You know, my desk at work and at home covered in post-it notes, to-do lists. You know, if I'm out and about, I'll make sure if I see something that I think, oh, that would be a great present for someone, I'll snap a photo of it. Things like shopping lists, I get very distracted, particularly in large supermarkets. I'm like, oh, that would be nice, and forget actually what I came in for. So visuals are really helpful for us in our everyday lives. So using them with our children at any age can be really beneficial. When we think about visuals, often when someone says, you're using visuals with your child, this is kind of what comes to mind, that sort of visual timetable. Normally it's those nice little kind of happy clip art images. You know, they're normally printed out, cut out, beautifully laminated with Velcro on the back. You know, often if you go into schools, you'll see them in the classrooms, and children might have their own individual ones. But visuals are so much more than that. And for some people actually looking at that going, I don't own a laminator, and I certainly don't have time to be putting all of that together. So today we're going to look at how we can adapt the visuals so that they work obviously for your child or young person, but also for you. So what I've done is thinking about the imagery that we use first, and I've split it into 3 levels. Level 3 kind of being the most sort of abstract type of visual that we might use, probably what we use as adults. Because if we think about the different images or the types of images or writing that we're using in our visuals as our kind of first focus, that can then help us look at, right, how effective are these? How much is my child engaging with these? Do I need to go up a level, or maybe I need to go down? Quite often visuals are sort of aimed at what I call level 2, which we'll look at in a moment. And for some children, they work amazingly. For other children, they might be ready to kind of move on to level 3 and have things written. For other children, we might need to scale them back a little bit. So we'll start at level 3 because this is probably what we're familiar with as adults. Obviously, writing, using text, using writing is still a type of visual because we're externalizing those executive functions, those things we've got to remember, know what's coming up. When we use writing, we obviously need these skills associated with reading. We've got to be able to decode what that word says and apply meaning to it. So if it says the word school, we've got to understand that, number one, we've got to be able to read that that's what it says and know that it means, right, I'm going to be going to school. So it still kind of takes that level of processing and, you know, again, for some of our kids is exactly what they need, and for some of our children we might start introducing those alongside using images. Another kind of more abstract type of visual is an abstract symbol. So we might use this to kind of denote that something is important. We might use an exclamation mark. Well, that exclamation mark doesn't kind of tell us anything, but it represents to us that that's something important. We put it on our calendar when, you know, there's something that we've got to remember. We might underline something, or we might use an image like a star to, you know, show that we've got to remember something on our list. So they're abstract symbols that don't kind of represent, don't show what they mean. Things like colour coding. We do a Moving to Secondary School course each year, and colour coding comes into that as part of our organisational skills. Colour coding can be really, really helpful for children and young people when you've got kind of different elements that you want to create some connection between. So it might be a timetable and a map, for example. So often for Moving to Secondary School, we do our colour code our timetable for all the lessons, and then we colour code the map of the school as to where those classrooms would be. But again, we've got to know that those colours represent a lesson or those colours represent a person. So we've got to have that understanding that there is that connection that isn't obvious. So scaling it down to level 2, this is often where most of kind of visuals that you'll find online, if you go, you know, if you go onto a search engine and pop in, you know, daily timetable or routine visuals, you're most likely to find things like these. So it's going to be things like those cartoons, clip arts, maybe drawings or illustrations, and it might be kind of more of those basic line symbols, but those symbols that represent what they're showing. So on the example here, we've got some school symbols that might represent different lessons. So we might have the calculator to represent maths, we might have the basketball symbol to represent PE. They are more literal to what they're showing. Or we might use a stock image. We might go on to, again, a search engine image function and find some just stock images of different places or different activities. Now, these are really, really great and can really help lots of children and work for lots of children. But there still is that element that we look at these visuals and we kind of go, they don't represent the real thing. You know, if we think about our little timetable there, you know, that kind of cartoon boy is not of the child themselves. So actually when they look at that, they might go, well, that's not me. You know, or if it's a stock image of a playground, well, if that's what I'm looking at, that might be the playground that I'm expecting to go to. And when I go to one that doesn't have that amazing red curly slide, that might make me feel a bit overwhelmed or unsure or get distressed. So we've got to know that they just represent a real activity or a real place, but aren't the actual thing itself. And this is where for some of our children, we kind of start at this level and it can kind of create maybe a bit of confusion or set expectations that, you know, actually this is what you're gonna do or gonna see that aren't quite right. And these things maybe won't be as familiar as if we were using a different type of visual. So again, for some children, they engage with it really well and they're like, yeah, I know that represents this. Things like the kind of the literal symbols and icons, particularly for your teenagers, your young people, if they're used to seeing things like emojis on their phone, on their device. Again, that's kind of a symbol that represents something. So you can kind of incorporate things like that. But actually, if you find that your child isn't quite engaging or does sort of get you know, distressed or confused or upset when actually you don't go to that exact park, or you show them the image of a biscuit that always looks like a kind of, you know, chocolate chip cookie, and actually that's what they're expecting to receive, and they get a custard cream, I'd be happy, but they might not. So it's just remembering that actually if your child is quite literal and wants to see the sort of real thing, that we might need to scale it back to what I call level 1. And that is the use of photographs or videos of those real life objects. So, you know, it's about using, you know, whether it's your phone, your camera on your phone, or a real camera, if we use those anymore, to take pictures, to take videos of these real life things. So if you're doing a daily timetable, for example, you know, and we're going to have a picture to represent breakfast, then it is, you know, your crockery and, you know, plates and bowls at your dining table set up for breakfast, what they expect to really see when that actually happens, or a picture of their school if you've got that on your timetable. If you can incorporate the child in the picture, that can be quite a draw and engaging, because actually I'm in that picture. You know, so a picture of them outside their front, you know, the front of their school, or outside Nana's house, to just kind of bring that connection to that image, and make it feel more kind of real, and for them to be able to sort of engage in it. Now, for some children, having kind of that 2D image, whether it is even sort of printed out, they might need something a bit more tangible. So this is when, instead of kind of using picture images or written images, we might use physical objects. And you might find often in our kind of preschool sessions, parents will say, or we'll kind of see firsthand in the sessions, that for children maybe who have limited or no verbal communication, may very much already gravitate to using objects to communicate. So we can help to use those as part of our kind of visual world. So, you know, if it's when they're feeling thirsty, they might go and get their cup, bring their cup to you to show you that I'm requesting the drink. Or if they want to watch telly, they might go and get the TV remote. And if your child is already sort of using that as a form of communication, we can kind of start there with what they kind of associate with these different activities, to then help to prepare them or help them learn kind of routines as well. So something around objects, if your child is already using them, I would really suggest looking up something called objects of reference, which is a form of communication using objects, and then that can help kind of build in those real life objects as a form of visuals, and using those in kind of different aspects of your child's life. So now we've kind of thought, right, we've got our 3 sort of levels, really abstract. We've got to know that it represents something, but it's not going to show me the thing that I think is going to happen or what I need to do next. It just represents something at level 3, or I've got to be able to have the skill to read that information, decode it and process it and understand it. Level 2 are those images that aren't of the real life objects or places or people, but represent them. And then level 1, we're very much having that kind of literal interpretation. These are real life pictures, or they are real life objects. If you're thinking to yourself, you know, I want to help prepare my child for going on holiday, for example, and as much as I'd like to do a little recce tour of wherever we're going by myself to take some photos, it's not going to happen. Things like Google Maps Street View can be your best friend. Most kind of public places you can go on, and as long as there's a road that kind of goes up to wherever it is, you can take screenshots of those images to use, instead of having to kind of get there and take a photo yourself, or if you're going to visit friends, get them to take photos and send them to you. But they can be really powerful in helping to kind of prepare our children for what's coming up. So again, visuals, we often think of kind of that visual timetable, but as we looked at the beginning with the visuals we use as adults, there can be a really wide range of different types of visuals. So again, for our children, looking at, I say organisation, chances are as parents, you're probably doing all of the organising, but we might need to prepare them for what is coming up. So using things like calendars or whiteboard timetables, and this could be your kind of paper annual calendar that you get for Christmas, that you put all the family stuff on, or it might be that actually having a whole year's worth of information might be a little bit information overload. They might kind of get quite fixated on events or things that are coming up in the distant future. So we might want to scale it back and do 1 month at a time. You can find whiteboards that have got kind of just a month calendar, or if you're using a paper calendar, literally just kind of rip each month off as you go. So again, even a month might be too much, so you might want to scale it back again and just do a week, or for some children they might just need to know what that day holds, and that's when we might introduce more of kind of a visual timetable format. So I've got here what our day is going to have: breakfast, brushing my teeth, getting dressed, walking to school, and so on. And in this instance I've used the icons instead of images, but you could again use photos, use short videos, or use the kind of clip art images, or for older children it might just be a bullet pointed list of this is what's coming up. For some children, even that kind of full day can be a bit overwhelming. We can do things like cover things up and lift the flap, or cross things off, rub them off once they're done. But for some children, we might just want to focus on what's happening now and what's coming up next. So we might use now and next, or first and then. So that's just focusing on what's happening now, what's coming up next. For preparation around maybe different kind of events or different things that are coming up they've never experienced before, we might want to look into using things like social stories or comic strip conversations, chat cartoons, that again look at things in a very visual format and can help kind of prepare a child for what's coming up.
5 minutes, Kate. Sorry, okay. 5 minutes.
That's all right. I'm almost there. So for tasks, again, it's looking at things like routine, particularly kind of daily tasks we might do, like brushing our teeth, using the toilet, getting dressed. Videos can be really, really powerful here if it is a routine where your child needs some kind of movement. So as lovely as this image is of all these rather strange looking mouths, actually to see the movement of the toothbrush, to fully understand how I need to move my hand, we might benefit more from a actual video where we can see that. Instructions, particularly, breaking things down into little chunks. Here's step 1, step 2, and what our end goal is. It might help with things like homework, or even again the routines and the different daily tasks. And reminders, so things like checklists, and again, this doesn't have to be a written checklist that we might use as an adult, or our young people might use. It might be pictures. Like, what do I need in my school bag before I leave? What do I need to have on my person before I go out of the house? We can have those images up. We might use them to display visually our house rules. You're often going to a classroom and see the classroom rules up on display, so we can use those. Things like having photo or picture reminders, don't forget your wellies when it's raining, and post-it notes can be really helpful, particularly as we're kind of helping our children become independent. So we can write on there or have the images of what they need to do, and they can take that post-it note with them. Right, I'm going to go and it's bedtime, so I'm going upstairs, I'm going to brush my teeth, I'll stick the post-it note on the bathroom mirror, brush my teeth, right, take that off, what's next? Right, get my pajamas on, go into the bedroom, stick that on the wardrobe, and so on. So it's just thinking, right, how can we use those different ways of presenting things to help prepare them, remind them, and help them with different tasks. Now, I've kind of done a little bit of troubleshooting and preempted some potential questions. These are often things families say, we've tried visuals, it's not working. So it's worth thinking about the type of images that we're using. Do we need to move up or down a level? Are those images too abstract? So do we need to move towards using photos of the real things? If we are using any kind of anything but sort of those very simple icons, are the images too busy? Is it really clear what they're representing? Or if we are using those line icons, is it not engaging for the child? Excuse me. Again, thinking about how much information we are presenting. Is it too much? Is it not enough? And trying to find that balance. If your child, any other setting, uses any type of visuals, whether it's a visual timetable at school or preschool or college or whatever it is there any continuity that you can have between home and school so that they know, right, this is what my visual timetable looks like wherever I am? One of the big things, as I said, with the beautifully laminated visual timetable is going, do you know what, that's just too time consuming for me as a busy parent. You know, so utilising kind of digital versions, set up a file of pictures on your phone, on your tablet, on their device, so that you can just kind of have it all in there and you can access it. They can look through, right, this is our visual timetable for, or these are our videos for our morning routine, and we can watch those back and back and back and have that kind of repetition. Again, if your child's kind of finding it difficult to even look at the visuals, just trying to sort of model how you might use them. Oh, I wonder what's happening today. Right, I'm going to look at my calendar, or I'm going to look on the timetable, I'm going to look on the whiteboard, helping them to see how, you know, even as an adult, we still use those kind of external visuals to help keep us organised. Now, just before I finish, just a little, I suppose, word of warning. If your child gets a lot of anxiety around demands, it's worth really kind of taking your time and being quite gentle, particularly if you're looking at things like using visuals for timetables, because for some children, having this, right, this is what your day is going to be like, you know, that really feels like a demand. So if that is something that your child might find, you know, upsetting, distressing, cause them anxiety, again, it doesn't mean, right, we're not going to use visuals, but it might be more about giving them a bit of a feeling of being involved, giving them some choice and control. Right, these are the activities that we need to do this evening. What order can we do them in? Or would you like to do this one or this one? But just kind of being aware of that from the outset. If you're introducing any kind of new visual, is that going to make them feel like, oh, that's telling me or asking me what to do? And I find that really kind of increases my anxiety. So just be a little bit wary on that side of things. I think, yeah, that is me done. I'm quite impressed that I kept time there. I probably spoke so quickly. So I've been Kate, the Family and Information Manager at Snap Charity. Here's our contact details. If you've not been in contact with Snap before, please do give us a ring, pop us an email, and have a chat with us about the different ways that we could support you and your family.